Hi, this is Maggie from Crafts the Charm. Thank you for stopping by my channel. I'm so glad you're here. Last week, I upcycled some soda cans to make a star for my outdoor wall decor, and I liked that project so much that I thought I would upcycle some soda cans again, but this time to make a garland for my kitchen. I'm going to start with the soda can stars. So I found a 6-pointed star on the internet, and I scaled it to about 2 inches high and wide, and I printed that out and cut that out. I'm going to be able to get 2 of those stars out of each soda can. With the soda can, I'm going to use my box cutter knife and cut around the top or the bottom of the soda can, remove that, and then switch to Aviation snips and use that to cut straight down to the bottom or the top, depending on where you started, and then around the bottom of the soda can, giving me one long flat strip that is about 8 inches by 4 inches. You can flatten that out using the box cutter knife or something else. Save the bottom of your cans because we're going to use those a little bit later. So what I then did was I used a dull pencil to trace around the star on a piece of aluminum, and I was able to trace 2 stars on each piece. Now I did this a few different ways. I'm going to show you the way that I thought was both easiest and that I ended up using in this project. So I did do some stars that were using the printed side of the can, and those looked prettiest for the Coke cans, I thought, because those are red. And I did do some stars where I bent in the edges. But the ones that I ultimately used the inside of the can, the aluminum colored side, and I did not bend in the edges on those. So I'm going to show you that. I do also want to note that Coca-Cola cans feel a little bit different from the other cans I used, which were Pepsi cans and Canada Dry cans. And I feel that the Coke cans were actually a little less sharp. But you can see that I am not wearing gloves. I do recommend that you wear gloves for this just to protect your skin. So notice when I cut this out, I'm cutting around the star, but I'm leaving a sort of a flap. And I'm cutting a little bit of a diagonal line at the points. This is what I ended up using without pressing those flaps in. So then what I did was, once I had cut out one of these stars with the little flaps, I used that and traced around that for some of my final stars. Now I'm cutting the flaps, so I'm cutting down to the inner line of those stars, but you don't have to do that. Once you've cut the star out, you're going to want to fold it 3 times. So you're going to fold it in half 3 times from point to point. And what's important here for your star to look the best is to have those lines that you're folding on intersect in the middle so that you have one point in the middle. So fold it and then unfold it as much as possible, leaving that crease. Fold it across the next 2 points, unfold it, and then fold it across the final 2 points and unfold it. Once you've done that, you're going to want to make the creases that are between the ones that go up, so the creases that go down, by folding your creases that go up together and just move around your star, fold them together, release, fold together, release. And then you might need to do a little pressing to make that point in the middle very tidy. But that's really it for the stars. You don't need to fold the flaps in underneath, although you can. I actually like the way they look better without doing that. Now let's make some faux orange slices. Take the underside of your can, and you're going to use this as the mold for your orange slice. So if you want something larger or you want something a little bit flatter, you might want to use something other than the bottoms of these cans. But I thought that these were just perfect, so this is what I used. Now don't make the mistake that I made and leave that printing on the bottom of your can if it has any. Take a little bit of alcohol and a cloth and remove that printing, because what happened to my orange slices is I ended up lifting that printing and making it part of the orange slice, and I had to scrape it off with a knife afterwards. All right, now that we've got all our little can bottoms, you're going to take a glue stick and cut it into pieces and drop them into the can bottoms. I used 1.5 glue sticks per orange slice. I then put these in a 350-degree oven. And the easiest way to do this is to be patient and wait for them to melt completely. Once they have, drop 3 to 4 drops of orange food coloring into the glue and stir it around. I'm stirring it with a craft stick, and I used 3 drops of this orange food coloring. I think that it's a little bit more of a tangerine color. Maybe I should have tried to mix red and yellow myself to get an orange, but I think that it came out okay. Now for this process, especially if you're doing more than one orange slice, you're probably going to have to keep putting this back in the oven and softening up the glue and then removing it. You can see that I'm picking up each of these aluminum can bottoms with the craft stick stuck in the glue and then grabbing it with some pliers and then stirring it around. And once you've stirred them all so that the orange is distributed evenly and they're nicely mixed, put them back in and let it melt enough so that it becomes flat in the can. And if you leave it in there long enough, it will also bubble a little bit, which will give it a nice texture that I think looks more like an orange than if it's completely smooth. Now here they are, and you can see that texture. And the trick now is to remove them before they really stick to the bottom of that can. So what I did was I just kept checking them, and once they were cool enough to touch, then I used a little screwdriver to pry them out and remove them from the bottom of the cans. And once again, I had to use my box cutter knife to scrape off that printing on the bottom, and I would not have had to do that if I had simply cleaned the bottom of the cans before I did this. Now, to make these look like orange slices, I am going to use this paper twist, and it isn't quite white, it's sort of an off-white color. So what I'm going to do is cut each of my circles of orange colored glue into 8 pieces. You can cut it into as many pieces as seems right to you. And I'm going to take this paper twist and I'm going to cut it into 8 small pieces that are about the height of the circles and that are about the length of a diameter of the circle. So these are going to go between the pieces that we just cut. But before we do that, cut off the middle of each piece so that there's a hole in the middle of your orange. When you cut these apart, make sure that you know which piece goes where, so keep it in a circle when you do this. And then you're just going to pick up one of your little slices and use hot glue to glue a piece of the paper twist to it. Make sure that you can see a little bit of that paper twist at the top of the piece, but you don't want it sticking out above the piece. And then glue the next piece next to it, then do the next piece of paper twist, and proceed all the way around. When you get to the end, have a piece of paper twist on either side and then glue that last wedge into place. I then cut a piece of paper twist long enough to go around the circumference of my circle, and I folded it over a couple of times to give it a little bit of thickness. It already has that nice texture of paper twist, and then I just glued that around the outside of the circle. Now to paint the outside of these, I used this Delta Ceramcoat acrylic paint in the color Pumpkin. Now you want to leave white on the inside because that's going to look like the pith of the orange, but on the outside you're going to want to paint with this orange color. So just paint to the edge, but make sure you don't paint the inside of that. Now to make the outside look a little bit more realistic, I mixed a little bit of that Delta Ceramcoat pumpkin with some Barrel Burnt Umber. I felt that was maybe a little too brown, so then I also added in some Apple Barrel Harvest Orange. All I want is to make the outside of these oranges look like they have some real orange texture. Now it's already textured, but it doesn't have that sort of dotty texture that I want. So I've got this now darker color, and I am using a stenciling brush to tap on the outside of these rinds. And then anywhere I felt that it was now a little bit too brown, I then tapped again with the original orange paint. Now for the garland itself, I used the brown nautical rope from the Dollar Tree, and I measured this in my kitchen where I want to put the garland, and I need it to be about 6 feet. So I'm going to cut this to a 6-foot length, and then I'm going to whip each end. Now what whipping does is it prevents the ends of a rope from fraying. I'm going to whip this with jute twine, which will be roughly the same color as the rope. To whip, you make a loop out of your twine with a short end and a long end, and then you put the loop against your rope with the ends pointing off the end of the rope, and then wrap the long end around your twine and the rope until you reach the loop. Cut your twine and put it through the loop, and then pull it from the other end, then pull both ends to make it nice and tight, and then trim it off. For a little bit of green color, I'm going to use this Just Yarn eyelash yarn in this hunter color. It is absolutely gorgeous, and I do think it looks a little bit like dill. So what I am going to do is cut that in lengths of 4, 5, and 6 inches, and just tie it around my rope about every 1/4 of an inch. And I'm cutting a bunch of lengths of 4, 5, and 6 inches and sort of mixing them together, so it's a little bit random the order that I put them in. So there's no pattern, just tying a piece of this around my rope every 1/4 inch. And I'm using a square knot, so right side over left and then left side over right, because this is very slippery, so I want it to stay on the rope. Now with this, because that eyelash will fall apart if you cut it, so where you've trimmed it there may be little bits, I'm just trying to shake it and rub it to get those little bits off as much as possible so this doesn't shed in my kitchen. And you can see I had quite a bit of that eyelash left when I was done. Now the final piece I want to add to this garland is some cinnamon sticks with these berries that I got at the Dollar Tree. So I'm going to hot glue 2 cinnamon sticks together, and then I'm going to cut off a few berries from these berry stems that I got at the Dollar Tree and hot glue those to the cinnamon sticks. And then I'm going to wrap some florist wire. I have this black florist wire. I'm going to wrap that around the whole thing, try to get it through the berries so that it's held together both with hot glue and with the wire. I'm wrapping the wire around several times because I like the way it looks and I do want it to be visible. For the other pieces, for the stars and the oranges, I am going to hot glue pieces of wire to the back of these so I can attach them to the garland. So I am going to do 2 pieces of wire on each of the stars and the oranges, 1 on each side, so I can secure them very well to the garland. And it's really just a matter of making a loop out of the wire, hot gluing it to the item, and then holding it in place until it dries. These are very lightweight, so that should be sufficient to hold them to the garland. Now to construct the garland, I am simply going to alternate. So I found the center of it and I put an orange in the center, and then I am just going to alternate with an orange and then the cinnamon sticks with the berries and then a star, and then an orange, cinnamon sticks with the berries and a star. So I laid them out and then I wired them to the rope, and then I trimmed the wires and pressed the ends back into the rope, so into the middle of the star or into the rope or into the orange slice. And here's the finished garland. And here it is in my kitchen. So what do you think of this garland? Do you have a favorite project? I love both the orange slices and the little tin stars. I am thrilled with how both of them came out, and I love the way this looks in the kitchen. I also loved the eyelash yarn as greenery. If you don't have floral picks, this is a really inexpensive alternative. Please tell me in the comments what you thought of this and if you had a favorite part. And if you liked this video, please give it a thumbs up. That helps my channel. If you like this sort of content, please subscribe to Crafts the Charm. Thank you for spending time with me today. Take care.